Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2086. The topic is mindset, and the title is, What Could Go Right? In one of my online clients' journals, they asked the following two questions. So I'm going to read through them, and then we'll expand and go from there. Question number one. Do you think I would benefit from doing 3 days of weight training as opposed to only 2 days? I feel that having only 2 days doesn't give me enough workout time to create the volume I would need per body part to make both strength and growth progressions. Then the second question. I counted the working sets per body part and compared them to recent research that I linked below. It appears that we're allocating the most working sets towards the upper back and glutes/hamstrings, and the lowest working sets towards direct arm and shoulder work. However, I feel that my arms and shoulders are a significant weak point in my physique. Do you think I would benefit by having more volume specifically for my shoulders and arms? So these are great questions, and I love getting to discuss these types of questions with the clients. I wrote extensive answers to kind of explain why I set the initial programming the way I did, even though he has these concerns. So, for example, should he do 3 days of weight training as opposed to only 2? Well, we're trying to balance weight training and running, and right now his nutrition is poor, and he doesn't have the recovery capacity to manage all of this, and he was struggling with scheduling and even getting his workouts in. So it was like, why in the world would we demand 5 days when we're not even meeting the 4 days we're supposed to be doing now? Then the second question, the number of working sets. The reason why we're focusing on upper back is his posture is poor, and that's part of the reason why he feels like his shoulders are a negative in his aesthetics. He just has forward rounded shoulders that are underdeveloped, but he has very poor back musculature. So the more we would train his upper back, the wider that would actually make his shoulders appear, and it would fix his posture. And then we're working on glutes and hamstrings because he has none of those either. And the stronger we can get those, the sooner we can get those, the more we can do bigger, more compound movements. So it's kind of like we have to invest into these other things before we would spend the time on these smaller body parts. And these other things, the things that I have programmed first, they're the foundation for what he really wants to build in the future. So I love this stuff. Absolutely love it. Wrote really long answers in his journal. But what I want to point out in today's podcast is, in the last 4 weeks, well, actually the 4 weeks before last week. So if you go back 5 weeks ago and then think of the four weeks after that, he was scheduled to train 4 times per week. So that would be 16 workouts. So 4 workouts per week, 4 weeks, 16 workouts. However, he only performed 6 full workouts. That was it. So out of the 16 scheduled workouts, he only did 6. Now, I want to preface the rest of the podcast saying that I asked him if I could make today's podcast. He actually agreed, and he said he would love to have this be a podcast because he feels that this is his weakness. What I'm about to talk about in today's podcast is his weakness, and he would love for it to help other people, and he wants to listen to this podcast in the future when he feels like he's starting to make this mistake again. He's starting to have this behavior that is creating a problem for him creeping back into his mind. Now, what is that behavior? It is overanalyzing the what-ifs. Specifically, he spends too much time wondering what could go wrong. When he's thought about starting diets in the past, his goal now actually is to gain weight. He wouldn't mind getting leaner, but he wants to gain muscle and he wants to gain strength. He wants to feel more athletic. So he isn't necessarily looking for fat loss. He just wants to look better, feel better, and be able to perform better. So when he's considered what diets in the past would help him towards his goals, he made a point of trying to analyze the diet before he started, trying to find what the pain point of that diet would be. What may be the cause for that diet to fail? He would then try to find a solution for that issue. Once he did, he would look for the next pain point. But maybe that one didn't have an easy solution, so he would say, oh, okay, it looks like that diet isn't going to work. I'm going to scrap that one. I'm going to look for a new diet. So he would analyze diet by diet by diet, but he never actually started one. And the same was true for training programs. He looked at popular tactical and kind of military-style programs, but then he worried about whether he could recover enough. He would then look at more beginner-style programs, but wondered if it had enough stimulus. He would analyze program by program by program, but he never actually started one. He always worried what could go wrong. When he reached out to start with me, he discussed his background, his struggles with overanalyzation, and he asked me to be blunt with him. He said, and this is a quote, but I can't say some of these words. He said, don't be a blank, but say what a blank would say, but somewhat nicer. So we'll say jerk. Don't be a jerk, but say what a jerk would say, but somewhat nicer. I laughed, and I said, I'll talk to you like I talk to myself, but without the 4-letter words. So I am pretty tough with myself. So I'll skip the 4-letter words, but that's what he wanted. He wanted the bluntness. And in the last entry before the previous week, I wrote to him, I said, I'm glad you're asking questions. Keep them coming. But you need to do the work. Even if the program isn't perfect yet, do it anyhow. If it's only 50% what it could be, 50% done is better than 0% done. Continue to ask questions, but get the workouts in. I don't mind if you modify them. Cut them in half. Double them. Whatever. I don't mind. I'll help you adjust your food and recovery accordingly, but get the work in. No more missed days. He replied, understood. And then the past week, he crushed it. He got all 4 workouts in. He even added a rucking, which is like a weighted backpack rucking session in the past weekend. So I freaking love it. I love it, love it, love it. He responded. He asked me to be blunt, and that was my bluntness with being nice. That is me nice. But he did it. He responded, crushed it. He's doing great this week so far, and I'm just very happy for him. But what he struggles with, that what could go wrong mindset, is common. And unfortunately, it leads to the person doing nothing. Even if there are elements that could go wrong, I asked him to start listing answers to the question, what could go right? If you did it anyhow, with just what you know now, even with the potential obstacles you can see in place, what could go right? We talked about this in his journal, and I said for training and nutrition, discipline. You will increase your discipline. Your ability to do what is best for you in the future, regardless of what is happening in the present. You're going to build your schedule management skills, being able to get your meals in, get your training in. You're going to find and solve issues faster, like frictions, things that'll get in the way of you following nutrition, things that'll get in the way of you doing your training. You're going to find those and solve those faster if you freaking move and start doing things. And the best thing of all, you'll make actual freaking progress. There is a lot that could go right, even if there are things that could go wrong. I asked him to analyze as you move. Do it and analyze it as you do it. Don't ask a million questions trying to solve everything from the starting line. You are fooling yourself in thinking that you can solve all of the obstacles before you start. And then just have like an easy peasy walk to the finish line. That never happens in the history of mankind. That has not happened, and it will never happen. There are obstacles you can see, and there are obstacles you cannot see from the starting line. You have to actually solve the obstacles as you go. If you suffer from the what could go wrong mindset, and it's leading you to never start anything, you never actually do anything. You're always analyzing, trying to solve problems. You feel like you're busy, but you're busy at nothing. Start asking yourself, what could go right? What could I benefit from if I start now? and solve things as I go. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to encourage you, as this client is, to fight that urge to start making the transition. Start freaking doing something. Just put some action to it and figure it out as you go. If you have any questions, hopefully you start and then send me questions. But you can send me questions. You can message us from the website, www.brutalirongym.com. Scroll to the bottom of the homepage. There's a contact form there. You can send me any questions you want at any time. I'm always happy to answer them. And if you're asking specific to this podcast, tell me what you're already doing. Tell me what you're already doing, and then ask me your questions. And then I'll answer them, okay? I answer everybody back within 2 weeks, so if you send me a message, I will respond. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast. If you like the information that we share in the podcast, even though I'm grumpy sometimes, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.